Hi everybody, this is Joy at Red Pine Quilt Shop. Today we are going to talk about squaring up your blocks using the Tucker trimmer. The Tucker trimmer is one of my favorite square up rulers because it can square up so many different kinds of blocks. So you can use the Tucker trimmer to square up 4 different types of blocks quite easily, and we're going to show you how to do that in a little bit. So you can use it to square up half square triangles. You can use it to square up quarter square triangle or hourglass blocks, combination units, and also what's commonly known as a cat's cradle block. And the neat thing about the Tucker trimmer ruler is that it has the lines on it that you need to match up with the various seam lines on those blocks to make sure that you're getting a good square up. So when you look at the Tucker trimmer ruler, you have the common diagonal, and that is that solid diagonal line running from corner to corner. But then you also see that you have lots of markings that are going in the opposite direction, and you have lots of markings for cleaning up your block. And we'll walk you through how all of those work later on. But the other thing that I wanted to point out right now on the ruler is that the ruler that we're looking at right now is the Tucker Trimmer 1, and it is designed to square up blocks in whole and half sizes. And if you look here, you can see the whole circle. That is the side of the ruler or the corner that you would use for squaring up whole size blocks. And if you flip the ruler around the other way, you have the half moon side, and that is the side that is designed for squaring up blocks that are going to be cut to a 1/2 inch size. So that's the Tucker Trimmer 1. The one thing that I like to do with my my Studio 180 rulers is to put these true grips on the bottom side, and I know those are a little hard to see on the video, but it is a grip product that I like to put on the back side of any rulers that I have that don't have built-in grip. And it's a very thin rubber disc. It sticks really well, and the nice thing with these is they keep the ruler from slipping, and you'll notice that you can see the markings on the ruler right through them because they are clear. So I put those on all my Studio 180 rulers. So the Tucker Trimmer 1 comes with a wonderful set of instructions. It's a very detailed set of instructions. You definitely want to hang on to this guy because it walks you through everything and also has some block ideas in there as well. Now, along with the Tucker Trimmer 1, we have 2 other rulers. We have the 2 and we have the 3. The Tucker Trimmer 3 is the bigger version of the Tucker Trimmer 1. You notice you have a whole inch side and you have a 1/2 inch corner, just like you had on the Tucker Trimmer 1. It's on a lot bigger ruler though. So this is designed to square up large blocks to those 1/2 and whole inch sizes. The Tucker Trimmer 2 is a little bit different. This is a similar size ruler to the 1, but it is marked so that you can square up to 3/4 inch sizes and to 1/4 inch sizes, and you can tell that by those corner markings. You've got a 1/4 moon there, you have a 3/4 moon here, and that is the ruler that's designed for squaring up blocks to those kind of a little bit more odd sizes, we might say, that are 1/4 and 3/4 of an inch size. So we're going to go ahead and show you now how to use the ruler to square up the 4 different types of blocks that I have in front of me. So my cameraman is going to swing around and hang over my shoulder so that we're not moving things around on you too much. And we will start by showing you. Now I have a block that I'm squaring up to a 1/2 inch size. I have it on my rotating cutting mat so that I can cut a little more easily. And it's a 1/2 inch size block, so I'm going to take and work with that corner of the block of the ruler that has the 1/2 moon on it. Now I'm a right-hander, so I'm going to position that in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to cut here and here. If I was a left-hander, I would rotate my block and I would rotate my ruler and I would put that marking in my upper left hand corner. And then as a lefty, I can cut here and I can cut here. So I'm going to switch myself back here to my right hand position. So I'm going to take and line that solid diagonal black line up with the seam line on my block. So I'm lining that up with my seam line. And now I am ready to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this side. I want to rotate my ruler, my mat a little bit because I have my rotating cutting mat and it'll just make it a little easier for me to cut. So you can see that the blocks, and I use the directions that come with the ruler, I'm taking off just tiny little slivers of fabric. So we're not wasting much fabric if you follow her directions in the pattern. So now I'm going to rotate my block. I'm doing it using my rotating cutting mat. And at this point, I'm going to do the same thing again. But along with lining up that diagonal line, I am also now paying attention to what we call the cleanup lines. And you see the 4.5, there's that little dotted line near my 4.5 inch marking, and that's what I'm cutting this to. And I'm going to make sure that I have those cleanup lines also lined up with the edges of the fabric that I just cut, and my seam is lined up with that diagonal. And I will go ahead and trim this one as well. Again, just a few little slivers coming off there. And now I have a very nice half square triangle block, and that seam line is coming right into my corners where you want to have it come. So now we're going to do the hourglass block. And on the hourglass block, this one is also finishing to a half size. But here I'm going to line up two things before I start to cut. I'm lining up my solid diagonal line again, but I'm also lining up that 4.5 inch dashed line. So I am going to line up both of those lines before I start cutting, making sure that my 4.5 inch cleanup lines are out into the block. And I will go ahead and make my first cut and my second cut. Again, just a little bit of scrap. I will rotate my mat so I'm working on the other corner. And now I'm going to line up three different things. I'm going to line up that solid diagonal line. I'm going to line up that dashed diagonal line. And I'm also going to make sure that my cleanup lines are on the edges of the fabric that I just cut. And I will go ahead and make my next two cuts. And there is my hourglass block. And again, you know, the seam lines are going right into the corners where you want them to be. And we have two more different types of blocks that we're going to square up. The next block is a combination unit. So it is a larger triangle and two small triangles. This one is a 2.5 inch size. So I'm going to line up a couple of different things here. So I'm lining up my 2.5 inch diagonal line. I'm lining up my common diagonal line with that seam line and the 2.5 inch with the other seam line. So this line is black. It's going to disappear pretty quickly when it hits my dark blue fabric, so you can see it right there. I'm going to slide that over until it just disappears, and then I know that I have touched that dark blue. And at this point, I'm good to cut. And I will cut those two sides and rotate my block. Again, I'll line that solid line up with the seam line, line my dashed line up with the seam line, and I'm also paying attention to my cleanup lines and making sure that they are right at the edge of the block that I just cut, the two sides that I just cut. And we will trim this block, and now we have our combination unit cleaned up and ready to sew into our quilt. And the last one that I'm going to show you is the cat's cradle block. And the cat's cradle block is a larger one. This one's going to be a 5.5-inch finished. And for this one, I'm going to pay close attention to where that square touches my large half square triangle side, because that solid black line I want to make sure is right on that intersection. So I don't want it over here. I want it lined up right on that intersection. And I will line up my 5.5-inch dashed line with my seam. And again, make sure that that solid line is right on the corner where that square touches the half square triangle. And I moved my mat just a tad and need to realign before I cut. So there we go. Now we're good. We'll cut there, and we'll cut there, and now we can rotate the mat or rotate the block, and we will line up the 5.5-inch line on our seam line, that dashed line. Again, we're watching to make sure that solid line is going right through the corner of that block, and I'm checking my 5.5-inch cleanup lines and making sure that they are at the edges of the block that I just cut. I'm going to rotate just a little bit so I get a little better angle to cut. And there is my cat's cradle unit all trimmed up and ready to go. So the Tucker Trimmer one is a really versatile ruler, and it has the markings on it that you need to have to square up a lot of different types of blocks, which is why I think it's one of the most versatile square up rulers that is on the market today, because it really can very adeptly square up many different types of blocks that we commonly make in our quilts. So it is a very versatile tool if you are looking for a good tool that can square up a lot of different types of blocks and a lot of different size blocks. So that is the Tucker Trimmer 1. The fundamentals of what I showed you apply to both the Tucker Trimmer 2 and 3 as well. And it is a great square up ruler to add to your tools, to your toolkit. Thanks for joining us today.